At 60, Keanu Reeves exposes the Hollywood star who secretly tried to destroy him. In 2000, Keanu Reeves revealed his signature was forged, forcing him into a film he never agreed to. After rejecting Speed 2, major studios quietly blacklisted him. For nearly a decade, Reeves vanished from lead roles without explanation. No scandal, no arrests, just silence. But what fans didn't know was that someone powerful wanted him erased. Chapter 1. Why did Hollywood suddenly drop him? Keanu Reeves wasn't your typical Hollywood superstar. Born in Beirut and raised across continents, he entered the film industry with a quiet charm that didn't scream celebrity, but whispered authentic. He played hockey like a warrior in Toronto, rode motorcycles like a rebel in Los Angeles, and treated everyone co-stars, crew, strangers with the same humble respect. His generosity was legendary. He gave away millions to support crew members and often walked away from projects that didn't align with his values. By the early 1990s, Keanu had become one of Hollywood's most bankable names. His performance in Speed, 1994, launched him into global superstardom. Studios lined up to offer him sequels, action franchises, and blockbuster deals. But something happened after Speed that shifted everything. Keanu turned down Speed 2, Cruise Control. His reason? The script didn't feel right. There wasn't enough character development. There was no point in running and jumping without meaning. That one decision, one that showed integrity, would quietly alter the next decade of his life, because instead of being respected for his choice, he was punished for it. Hollywood works in unspoken rules. You don't walk away from a hit, you don't say no to a franchise, and you definitely don't embarrass a studio publicly. But Keanu did just that and didn't play their PR game to explain himself. He simply said no and moved on. And then the silence began. From 1997 to the mid-2000s, Reeves, despite being the lead in The Matrix, received fewer and fewer major offers. No Marvel role, no Disney leads, no major romantic dramas. He was still beloved by fans, but the industry turned cold. "I was in movie jail," Keanu would later admit, referencing the decade where offers vanished, despite his success. It wasn't a public scandal. He didn't have a meltdown. He didn't lash out. But the roles disappeared. The buzz died down. Some insiders whispered that a few powerful executives felt betrayed by his decision to snub Speed 2, decision they took personally. He made them look bad by walking away. And in this town, that's all it takes, claimed one former studio assistant in a leaked industry blog post. And here's the strange part. Even after The Matrix revolutionized action cinema and made over $1 billion globally, Reeves wasn't rewarded with a flood of roles. He wasn't invited into Hollywood's elite club. He stayed on the fringe, starring in mid-budget films and projects that flew under the radar. He didn't complain. He didn't fight it publicly, but something clearly shifted, because no actor who just led the Matrix trilogy, arguably one of the most successful franchises, ever gets this cold of a shoulder unless something bigger is happening behind the scenes. So what really happened? What invisible hands were guiding the silence around Keanu Reeves? Was this all just studio politics or a personal vendetta, but buried under all the headlines? And it was a secret only a few insiders knew. Hours of research went into uncovering this story. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe so I can keep bringing you more. Chapter 2. His contract was forged. By who? By the year 2000, Keanu Reeves had already proven his box office power speed made him a star. The Matrix made him a legend. But then came something jarringly off-brand, a film called The Watcher. In it, Keanu played a sadistic serial killer cold, detached, empty. Critics panned it. Fans were stunned. Why would Keanu, known for soulful, purpose-driven roles, suddenly agree to a generic thriller with a weak script and uninspired direction? The answer stunned everyone. "A friend forged my signature." Keanu Reeves, in a rare interview, Keanu revealed that he never actually agreed to star in the film. But when legal threats came from the studio, he made a painful decision. "I couldn't prove he did it, and I didn't want to get sued," Keanu explained, softly but firmly. So instead of dragging it through court, he did the unthinkable. He showed up, delivered the role, and carried the burden silently. But that so-called friend, insiders believe he didn't act alone. Rumors began circulating through Hollywood tip lines and niche blogs. Some claimed that a powerful studio executive closely tied to Speed's production had orchestrated the setup. The motive: pure revenge. Keanu had turned down Speed 2A decisions seen not as creative discretion, but as defiance. He didn't play Hollywood's game. He didn't chase press. He didn't wine and dine producers. He gave away portions of his own salary to crew departments and kept his private life guarded. To some in the industry, this wasn't admirable. It was threatening. He made people look bad by staying clean. That's why they needed to trip him up, a respected film critic speculated. And The Watcher was the perfect trap. Despite its critical failure, the movie made money largely because Keanu's name and face were splashed across every poster. Audiences flooded in, only to find a lifeless, disconnected performance. You could see it in his eyes. He wasn't acting, he was enduring. A reviewer from Film Threat wrote, "The damage was done. Keanu didn't sue. He didn't go on talk shows to clear his name. He remained silent, and that silence was twisted into suspicion. Casting directors began labeling him off, hard to read, unpredictable. Rumors spread that he was emotionally distant, that he didn't show up for roles, all based on a performance he was trapped into, all because he chose integrity over manipulation, story over spectacle." So the question remains, was The Watcher just a bizarre misstep, or was it the first public strike in a long-planned takedown of a Hollywood outsider? Who really forged that contract? Why was it never investigated? And who stood to gain when one of Hollywood's most bankable stars was dragged through the mud? But even that wasn't the whole story, because what happened next shocked everyone. Chapter 3, they called him Unreliable. Why? After The Watcher, Keanu Reeves didn't just vanish from headlines, he quietly slipped out of the inner circle of Hollywood. There were no press releases, no dramatic exits. But for nearly a decade, something unmistakable happened. Keanu Reeves became invisible to the very industry he helped define. Studio-backed films no longer called. Franchises moved forward without him. He was quietly cut from multiple projects while they were still in development, and former collaborators, directors, producers, co-stars grew distant. Some stopped returning his calls altogether. One producer allegedly said off the record, "We don't know what to do with Keanu anymore. He's too quiet, too off the grid." But there was more happening than just silence. Behind the scenes, whispers started to spread. A well-known A-list actor, someone who had recently taken an executive producer role, was overheard telling colleagues, "He's not marketable anymore. He's weird, hard to manage." The quote echoed through casting circles. Soon, Keanu's name stopped appearing on shortlists, even for indie films that once welcomed difficult or unconventional stars. Anonymous casting directors later admitted his headshots were filtered out, not because of skill, but because someone up top had labeled him a risk. But why? Why would the industry turn on one of its most beloved stars? It wasn't about scandal. There were no drug stories, no arrests, no tabloid meltdowns. Keanu had no enemies publicly, but privately, that was another story. Years earlier, Keanu had stunned Hollywood when he gave up a portion of his salary in The Devil's Advocate, 1997, just to ensure Al Pacino could be cast. It was a rare move in an industry driven by ego. That kind of generosity should have made him untouchable. But years later, when a reunion project was proposed, Pacino reportedly declined to work with Keanu again without explanation. Was it pressure from behind the scenes, or something more personal? Keanu remained silent. When asked about his approach to roles, he famously said, "I don't care about money, I care about the story." But in Hollywood, that line didn't win him admirers, it made him dangerous. Because in an industry built on control, Keanu was uncontainable. He didn't go to the parties, he didn't schmooze, he didn't chase roles, he didn't need to. But that independence, that lack of need, it rubbed the wrong people the wrong way. One former talent agent recalled, "He was the kind of star you couldn't own and that terrified some people." While the public still adored him, insiders were being told a different story. He was difficult, disengaged, out of touch. But none of those labels matched who he really was. And what fans didn't realize was this had been brewing for years. Chapter 4, Studio Exec secretly blacklisted him forever. Keanu Reeves didn't just fall out of Hollywood's favor, he refused to play the game. And that made him a target. When most stars chase sequels and cash, Keanu did the opposite. He walked away from Speed 2, despite a guaranteed multi-million-dollar payday. He said no, not because he was difficult, but because the script was bad and meaningless. He didn't care about box office projections, he cared about the story. "Boats aren't that fast," Keanu once quipped when asked why he turned down the sequel. That one joke might have cost him a decade of work. He skipped red carpets, avoided tabloid bait, never gave paparazzi the drama they craved. And in an industry where visibility is currency, Keanu was unpredictable, unmanageable. But behind that silence, someone was keeping score. Industry insiders have long whispered that a top studio executive from the 1990s, someone with deep ties to Speed and the Matrix distributors, took Keanu's rejection personally. The identity of this executive has never been confirmed publicly, but their influence was massive. And according to multiple former assistants and producers, they made sure Keanu felt the consequences. "He embarrassed us." One associate allegedly said, "You don't walk away from a franchise like that, not without consequences." After the Speed 2 snub, Keanu's name was quietly blacklisted. He was labeled uncooperative. Major scripts never made it to his agent. Internal studio memos allegedly circulated with lines like "not a reliable return" or "won't do press." Even indie films avoided him, fearing it might burn bridges with big studios. But this wasn't just about ego, it was about control. Keanu didn't play favorites. He deferred pay so costume designers could be paid more. He gave his Matrix stunt team Harley Davidsons as thank you gifts. He wasn't trying to be a rebel, he was just being himself. And that authenticity? It made him dangerous in a town built on image. One director who worked with him in the early 2000s reflected on it bluntly. "Sometimes the system doesn't want you if it can't use you." And then came the real twist. Years later, when John Wick was being pitched to studios, no one wanted to fund it. Producers passed. Investors hesitated. The script floated in limbo. Insiders say that same executive, still active behind the scenes, was quietly working to delay or derail the project. But Keanu didn't wait. He and longtime stunt double Chad Stahelski took matters into their own hands. They developed it independently, fought for it, made it happen. John Wick became a global phenomenon and the ultimate revenge story, both on screen and off. But this feud, it wasn't over, not even close, because while the world was falling back in love with Keanu Reeves, the people who tried to erase him were still watching. And yet, some say this wasn't even the darkest secret they kept. Chapter 5. Which actor betrayed Keanu the worst? Keanu Reeves was manipulated, blacklisted, and painted as a liability, all because he refused to play by the rules of Hollywood fame. He rejected scripts that lacked soul, avoided red carpets, and gave away his earnings to uplift the people behind the camera. For years, that quiet integrity cost him everything. He was locked out of major roles, trapped in what he called movie jail, set up in The Watcher under a forged contract, cast aside while others whispered lies into the ears of executives. But here's the truth, Keanu never fought back with anger, he just kept moving forward. And then, something changed. John Wick was never supposed to be a blockbuster. It was a modest script passed over by big studios. But Reeves saw something deeper in Ida's story of grief, vengeance, and identity. He called in Chad Stahelski, his old stunt double, and helped build the film from the ground up. What they created wasn't just a movie, it was a statement. John Wick became the ultimate revenge story, and it mirrored Keanu's real-life journey, a man wronged by a system that underestimated him and who came back sharper, faster, stronger than ever. Audiences connected instantly. The quiet assassin with grief in his eyes reflected the same man who had quietly endured betrayal in real life. And suddenly the world remembered who Keanu Reeves was. He wasn't unreliable, he was untouchable, the most beloved actor in Hollywood. That's what fans began calling him, not because of his roles, but because of who he chose to be, even when no one was watching. But not all wounds were public. In a leaked conversation from a former agent, an unsettling claim emerged. Another A-lister helped bury Keanu's reputation in the 2000s. Someone he once mentored, someone he trusted. The name? Never confirmed. But those close to the situation believe it was someone Keanu had once shared screen time with. Someone whose career took off as Keanu stalled. And yet, Reeves has never addressed it. He's never called anyone out, never played victim, never fed the gossip mill. In interviews, when asked why he remained silent during that time, he simply smiled. You can steal roles, you can whisper lies, but you can't fake kindness, and that's why I'm still here. Keanu Reeves, 2023 interview. His legacy today isn't built on scandal, it's built on resilience. But there are still threads left untied. Whispers of who forged that contract, of who pulled the strings behind the scenes, of why someone tried so hard to silence him, and maybe the biggest question of all, why didn't he ever fight back? Some believe it's because he knew something deeper, that success isn't about revenge, it's about surviving with your soul intact, and if even half of that is true, it changes everything we thought we knew. But some insiders still claim there's more waiting to be uncovered. If even half of this story is true, it changes everything we thought we knew about Hollywood loyalty. But the twists don't stop here. Tap the video on your screen now to uncover the next shocking betrayal that rocked another A-list icon. Don't miss what's coming next.